We can take so much of the work that regulators have to do and so much of the manual reports that the regulated have to put together, and we can make that work much easier. We can automate so much of that, because when you automate, then that means that both the regulator and regulated can stop focusing on the spreadsheets and instead focus on the substance. We've been privileged to talk to many of the state utility commissions that are gathered here, and then we've been able to meet some of the regulated entities as well. Let me tell you whom you're about to meet. Our first guest in this first ever webcast is going to be Cynthia Menhorn. She's the Vice President at MCR Performance Solutions. She's a rate designer. After Cindy joins us, we're going to be interviewing Mishal Thadani. He's the founder at a startup called Rhizome. After that, we'll be joined by Nick Wagner, the VP Colorado Regulatory Affairs at Black Hills Energy. And then finally, Brad Johnson, who's been elected twice as a commissioner of the Montana Public Service Commission and is currently serving as vice chairman of the PSC. So we're very excited. First, I'm very thrilled to welcome Cynthia Menhorn, Vice President at MCR Performance Solutions, to talk a bit about what we're learning so far at NARUC. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure, Hudson. Thanks for having me.
Cindy, tell us a bit about MCR Performance Solutions, and then we'd love to ask you about this conference.
Okay, MCR Performance Solution is a boutique consulting firm. We do consulting for utilities only, water, gas, and electric. I head up our rates and regulatory practice, so I've been a standard person that comes to this meeting just about every time I can. So unless there's a client that needs me more, I'm here.
Sometimes that happens, right?
Yes, it absolutely does.
Well, tell us a bit about rate design, and then we'd love to ask about this conference. What is rate design?
Well, rate design is a way to make sure that the utilities have the ability to recover their revenue requirements, but it's an art. It's not a science, because it's more than just taking a total number and then dividing it by kilowatt hours or number of customers per se, because you really want the customers to understand the kind of rate that they are paying for, and you also want them to be able to change their behavior if they need to save money.
So it's not just a business decision by the by the utility.
No. This goes through the regulatory process. So this is the rate case, or would be something that rate design is part of the rate case that goes through, and the regulators have to approve it at the different commissions.
What's the most difficult aspect of balancing all of those different interests? The interest of the ratepayer, the interest of the utility, which has to be able to sustain what it's doing, and then also all these public policy considerations.
Well, that's interesting you should ask, Hudson, because as I'm going through this particular conference, we hear a lot about grid resiliency and reliability, and it's very, very important. All of the climate activities that have happened lately, it's really important for us to get ready for getting our utilities to net zero. And one of the challenges that you may remember is back when everybody thought, well, smart meters were the answer. Everybody,
I remember that being a thing.
Everybody thought smart meters would be the answer. But let me tell you, unless you have smart rates to go with those smart meters, they're not really utilizing what they need to be utilized for. So in other words, as I'm listening to these demand response and the beneficial electrification and everything that's, we are deep into at MCR Performance Solutions, it's having the ability to have a rate so that the customer can react to that rate. So ideally data.
Right.
I mean, that's the key. And if I were to say what would my wish list be as far as data, what it would be is I would have the ability for every customer, whether it's a residential, a mom and pop store, a commercial customer, an industrial, to have real-time pricing. And in order for them to have real-time pricing, they need the infrastructure to have that pricing. I don't want them to have to worry about turning their thermostats up and down. I want it to be automatic.
Yeah.
And I think that's the answer when you talk about smart rates and smart meters.
Well, that's an aspiration for the future, and it's one that we can work toward, I think, from the public policy angle and from technology as well.
Right.
And that brings us to the theme of the conference. It's innovative, disruptive technology and regulation. What are a few of the things, Cindy, that maybe you didn't know that you've learned from the sessions at this conference?
Well, it's all. I always learn something at these conferences. It's really important to see other people's perspectives. So, I mean, I have a limited. I mean, I work across the country, but I don't know everything that's going on in every
Right.
state. So, it's always important for me to continue to learn what other states are doing and what's working in other states, and what regulators like to see and what regulators don't like to see.
Right.
Because if I'm going before a new client and it's a new commission, then I have a better idea of what I want to propose to them from a rate design perspective.
So, what are you learning from these sessions? Are there things that have jumped out at you that understanding that you wouldn't have had you not had a chance to come and join there?
Yes, and there's always something. I sat in on a really interesting panel this morning about demand response and all the electrification and everything that we are going through as a firm for clients, but just how to marry the energy efficiency and demand response and the electrification all together. And it's helped.
That sounds really valuable. So it's prediction time. Thinking about the theme of our conference, that technology is changing the way that utility regulation works, what's one prediction you'd like to make for the next 5 years about the technological transformation of utility regulation?
Well, that one of the things that I would like to see is the ability for customers to be able to modify their behavior without it being too cumbersome, if you will. Uh, Recently, you hear about on and off peak rates and all that, but what customer is going to move if they're a restaurant, their service to later in the day? Nobody. It's unrealistic. So to come up with the load curve where actually the load is smaller during the day, then the customers can get the benefit of lower prices without having to do anything.
Is that possible?
Yes. Yes, it's possible with renewables, it's possible with solar, it's possible with all those things that are coming to play.
That's a really optimistic message. We're encouraging folks that are participating in this afternoon to be blunt, but blunt optimism is good too.
I want optimism too.
Cindy, any other thoughts that you want to make sure to share with our audience? I should probably tell you, our FERC Professionals group includes a number of commissions. We have some commission staff that are joining us remotely because they weren't able to attend the conference, and then also the regulators, or the regulated utilities, and then a few tech companies that are trying to transform the way that utility regulation works. So thinking about those constituencies, any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes, I would. And one thing is, it's always important to work together. But right now, with everything that is going on with net zero and grid resiliency and reliability, and the ability to have the data so that customers can react to how they're using their electricity, I think is extremely important. And I think, it's going to be very definitely working together with the regulators, working with all the commissions and all the utilities. And there's solutions out there. It's just I think everybody has to be open